Aristotle once said, "In every act of doing, we are becoming." Every day, all of us make choices that shape and form us into the people that we are and the people that we are becoming. I'm your producer, Michael Moffat, and I want to welcome you to the Arete Way, a podcast dedicated to helping you become excellent in all that you do. Our hosts today are Walter and Stacy Nussbaum.
Today, Stacy, we're going to be talking about social styles. This is a model that you and I we have been involved in this model now for 10 years.
10 plus years.
Yeah, and it's
We love
really
it.
made an impact. Can you remember the first time that you got exposed to this model, kind of what you thought when you first really came across it?
hmm I'm pretty sure you taught it to me on a napkin on an airplane, and that's how simple it is. And I remember thinking, "Wow, this is fascinating." Truly, I think it's a life changing model if you take it seriously. We tell everyone that we know about it. We tell our children. Obviously, we teach it in the workplace, and we use it probably every day, right?
Every
And
day.
almost every time we go somewhere, we joke with, "What do you think he was?" "Oh, yeah, he's a driver." "No, he was an analytical." And so it's really become kind of a way of life and how we frame people and relationships and ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's been a real light bulb.
Yeah, I think one of the earliest experiences for me is it allowed me to not take things as
Yeah.
personal as maybe I used
You
to.
don't take things personal.
Well, I did
It allowed
years
me
ago.
not to take things
Yeah.
personal.
When you realize that it's just a person's style and they're not really doing
Yeah.
anything purposely
Yeah.
to frustrate you or upset you or whatever, it makes you realize it's just their style.
Yeah.
And so, Socrates was known for a very famous quote, right? What are his famous two words?
Know thyself.
Know thyself. And
Easier
that
said than done.
it
Yeah.
is easier said than done. But when you can take the time to really be self-aware
Mhm.
and to know who you are, man, that really is the beginning of real growth and personal development. So when you think of somebody who has a high level of self-awareness,
Mhm.
what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
I think that they understand how it is that they come across to other people. You could correlate that to emotional intelligence, which we love the book, Daniel Goleman's book about emotional intelligence. It talks about these four pillars, and know thyself is one of them.
Mhm.
And essentially, he defines emotional intelligence as the ability to um, understand what you're feeling, control what you're feeling, and be able to express what you're feeling. Um, and it also corresponds to being able to do that in your interpersonal relationships, being able to treat them judiciously and empathetically, meaning that
Mhm.
you can understand others' emotions as well as yourself, and really controlling it, I think, is key.
Right. Absolutely. The ability to know how you come across to other people. How important is that?
Mhm. It's pretty important, and I think that we could all say that it's an area of growth. Some are more self-aware than others, and we certainly all experience that, in our daily
Right.
lives. And I think that it requires, a real introspection about
Mhm.
yourself, and it requires being open to people sharing with you how you actually do come across.
Right,
And
yeah.
that's a real scary thing
How
for
tough
people.
is it for you to see somebody that you know has a low level of self-awareness and has a
Mm.
behavior that's getting in their way and you're watching it? How hard is that to watch somebody?
It's painful. It's annoying. It's hard to be around that person.
Yeah,
I think the real challenge is finding the courage to tell them, and I
yeah,
think that many of us don't
right.
find the courage to do that. But how beneficial would it be if we all were willing to do that in love, of course?
Yes. Well, that is the best way to know yourself is
Mhm,
to allow others
mhm.
to tell you what they see.
This is something you're really gifted at. I believe that you've really shown me kind of example of how to do that. You have kind of this uncanny way about being able to be uh, radically candid, you
Mhm,
know, in a way that people are able to receive it. How do you do that
mhm.
so effectively? I think that's a really tough skill and a tough balance to find, being radically honest, but doing it in a way that shows that you care.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that for one. I think that, my approach when I talk to somebody is I really do try to put myself in their shoes and ask myself, how would I want somebody to say that to me? And I almost always start off by acknowledging that I'm a work in progress and that there's things that I'm working on with me. And I might even share examples of feedback people have given me. And then I'll usually, if it's a really tough one, I'll ask them permission. I'll
Mhm.
say, I don't know if you're open to this or not, but I'd love to give you some feedback. If you're not comfortable with that, no big deal. And usually people always say, absolutely,
Mhm.
give me
Mhm.
some feedback. And with that permission, now it gives me the freedom to say it honestly, but to really encourage them with it. Right.
Mhm.
And I try to lift them up. I want them to feel like this isn't criticism, this is construction, right?
Mhm.
It's something that helps them to build themselves. And it's really allowed me. And honestly, if it hasn't been, if it hadn't have been done for me so many
Mhm.
times, I wouldn't realize the real importance of it.
Yeah, you've had a few occasions where people have been radically honest with you about some
Yeah.
things, and tell us about that experience.
Look, I'll give you one that was really important to me. When I was younger, I used to end every conversation with this ridiculous phrase, and it was a way that I would transition out of a conversation. And you know what this is because you've heard me tell this story before. I would end every conversation with, "Hey, I'll give you a call." And I would shake their hand. "Hey, I'll give you a call. Hey, I'll give you a call." And I would tell everybody that, and it would be my way of moving on to another conversation. And I remember when I was in grad school, I was leaving class one day, and one of my buddies, his name was Mark, we were walking out of class, and I told him that a bunch of us were going country dancing that night and that he should go with us. And he said, "Well, where are y'all going?" And I said, "Well, I think we're going to a place back then called Country 2000." I said, "I think we're going to Country 2000, but hey, I'll give you a call." And I never called him. And a bunch of us went out that night, had a great time. And the next day, Mark was leaving class with one of the guys that went dancing with us that night. And the guy was just telling him that, "Hey, you ought to go dancing with us sometime." And Mark asked him, "Hey, was Walter with y'all last night?" And he goes, "Yeah, Walt was there." And Mark goes home. This is back when they had this thing called a landline, and he left me a message on this thing called a answering machine.
Voicemail.
And he leaves me this message, and I still remember it. And essentially, this is what he said to me. He said, "Walter, this is Mark. I just want you to know, I don't think you're a man of your word. I don't think you're a man of integrity. I can't tell you how many times you've said, 'I'll give you a call,' and you don't. And I don't have any desire being friends with somebody that treats their friends that way." And I don't even think he intended to end it this way. He said, "If you want to talk about it,"
Oh, I bet he intended it.
yeah, maybe so. He said, "Give me a call." And man, I remember in that moment, I had a choice. I could have been angry. I could have been
So you weren't
sensitive.
angry?
I wasn't angry. I was embarrassed
Yeah.
because I knew
You
what he
knew he
said
was
was
right.
true. He was right. And I called him and I told him he was right. And he was really honest with me on the phone. And it was hard to hear. And do you know that ever since then, I can think of very few times I've ever said to somebody, "I'll give you a call," without calling them. And had he not offered that to me, I would never have changed that behavior.
Mhm.
And the reason it was important to me is because my integrity matters to me. It matters to me that I do what I say I'm going to do. And I'm far from perfect at it, but I strive to be better at it. And that's the gift of feedback, right? Wouldn't you
Mhm.
agree that feedback really is a gift?
Oh, yeah, you appreciate it, even though it's hard to hear. If you've got food in your teeth, you want somebody to have the courage to say, "Hey, Stacy, you have food in your teeth,"
Yeah.
right? You appreciate it. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
don't really know. You can't do anything to change it, and it's hard, but I think it's so valuable.
I think people would say that about, if you have bad breath, you want your friend to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, listen, you might want to get a piece of gum. I don't know what's going on. You got bad breath." You want that. Yeah, if you still got a tag on a
Yeah.
blouse that you just bought and you forgot to rip the tag off, you want
And
somebody
you've
to
been
say
walking
it.
around all day like that. Yeah, it makes you
Yes.
feel kind of foolish.
Yeah, I've done
Yeah.
that. I've had that medium sticker on my pants that I bought on the back of my leg that I didn't know, and all of a sudden, end of the day, there it is.
Yeah.
And how many people probably saw it, and no
Yeah.
one ever said, "Hey, you still got your medium sticker on there."
Yeah.
And yet, we want that. And so, how much more when it comes to our personalities and
Mhm.
how we're dealing with
Mhm.
people? Because look, let's just be frank about it. There are a lot of behaviors out there that can be really irritating and problematic for people.
Mhm.
There's the person who talks too much, right?
Mhm.
They never shut up. They
Mhm.
don't, and they're not even aware of it. They think they're just perfectly friendly, but they never
Right.
create enough room for two people in the conversation.
But instead of telling them that, you end up avoiding them the next time you see them.
That's right.
Yeah.
You see them in the Kroger aisle and you go down to the other aisle because you don't want to have to
Right.
talk to them because you're not really in the mood, right? And
Right.
so that's a problem, right? They've got to be aware of that.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the person that never talks,
Mhm.
that going to lunch with them is the longest hour of your life.
'Cause you're just drawing the questions
Yes.
out one by one, and that's
Yes.
real work.
And they
Yeah.
just don't really take an interest.
Mhm.
There's the person who
Mhm.
all they ever do is talk about themselves. There's the person that all they ever do is talk about negative things and how overwhelmed they are. That's what dominates their energy,
Mhm.
right? And we could list dozens of behaviors.
So
Um,
take it a step further. You're talking about how Socrates said, know thyself is critical. But if you can know yourself all day long, but what do you have to do about it?
yeah, now you have to change thyself.
Right? So control thyself is the next one.
Control,
So you have to
right.
be able to do something to modify that bad behavior or that bad habit that comes across to people
That's right.
in a
Now,
negative
what if you're the
way.
type of person that says, "Hey, I just like the person that I am. I'm not interested at all in changing myself."
Mhm. Mhm. Well, we know a handful of people like that, right? We
Yeah.
both do. But I think that it's to their own detriment because you can only be as effective as you are able to interact with other people, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can't get along and have good relational skills, then you can only go so far. So
That's
really
right.
it's to that person's unfortunate detriment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's gotta be, personal development. I think we would all agree with this. It requires humility
Mhm.
because you gotta be able to hear feedback. It takes courage. You gotta be willing now to do the hard thing to
Mhm.
improve. And it takes a real you said this in the last podcast, it comes from a core belief.
Mhm. Mhm.
And your core belief has to be that I wanna be the kind of person that's seeking
Mhm.
growth.
Right.
And if you have those 3 things, everybody can grow. And so social styles is this great tool, not the only tool. You've got
Mhm.
Myers-Briggs,
Mhm.
you got DISC, you've got the Enneagram,
Mhm.
you've got all these other programs out there that all in their own way make a great contribution to the field of knowing thyself.
That's true.
We just love social styles because it's so simple. The words are basically what they say they are.
Right. It's
And just
easy
by
to remember. It's
easy
easy.
to remember,
Mhm.
and it's easy to teach. You can teach on a
Mhm.
napkin in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Now, you and I, we've had to do it for 8 hours in a
Right.
classroom with lots of people, and that's a lot of fun because you get to
Mhm.
take a deep dive into all of
Mhm.
these. So for those who are, watching this on YouTube, we're gonna put a link at the bottom.
Mhm.
Obviously, we can't build the model, talking about it right here, but there will be a link at the bottom with the model that they can just download for free, and they can print it off and kinda
Mhm.
decide for themselves, "Hey, what am I?"
Mhm.
What are the people around me? Or even better, have others
Mhm.
tell you what they think you are because they're probably seeing you a lot more accurately than you
Yeah,
are.
which in our opinion is much more effective for you to have 5, 6, 10 people, not your family members,
Right.
but people that really know you and can evaluate honestly, have them do it. And you can do it yourself as well, but it's not gonna be as accurate if you do it yourself because even me,
Yeah.
I got mine wrong. You even assessed me wrong, and
Right.
and we do this for a living.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to self-assess, even if you're really self-aware.
Yeah, it is, particularly if you're family, because you're usually seeing a lot more layers in family. So it's harder to identify what their core style
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
because you're seeing that person really
Yeah.
completely
Bare
open.
bare bones,
Yeah,
yeah.
bare bones. So let's walk through this model. We're going to go through the 4 styles, and as we do this, hopefully the listeners and the people who are watching this right now are going to evaluate these 4 styles and ask themselves,
Mhm.
what is my
Mhm.
style? Which of these 4 am I? What's my primary? What's my secondary? And look,
Mhm.
whether they're in sales, whether
Mhm.
they're married, they're in a relationship, whether they are
Mhm.
in a work team, this model will absolutely help them
Mhm.
to understand themselves and others a lot more
Mhm.
effectively. So let's start off with the analytical, right? This is a wonderful style. The analytical is such a unique style. Talk
Mhm.
about some of the strengths that the analytical brings to the table.
The analytical is highly conscientious. Um, they're very loyal. They pay attention to detail. They're very thorough. They like things to be accurate. Um, I would say that the analytical is kind of an internal processor, really kind of takes things to heart. Um, I think is typically a good listener. Um, Uh, gosh, what else? I think that the analytical really thrives on time alone and just re-energizing that
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah.
I think some of the weaknesses of the analytical are is that they want time alone, so they can tend to be avoidant
Mm.
of people during tough times or during times of emotional struggle. They tend to go inward, which I think can be good and bad. I think the analyticals can be critical, which is
Mm.
good and bad.
Mhm.
So there's always that positive side to every style and the negative. But on the negative side, just analyticals can tend to see all the things that might go wrong instead of focusing all the things that could go right.
Yeah. Yeah. Needing that
Mhm.
needing that balance.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm,
I've always loved about the analytical that the analytical has an ability to enhance everything because they always see what still needs to be done. They
yeah.
know how to improve things. They have an eye for detail. That's really a gift.
Mhm,
And it's a beautiful thing to see and to watch. But like you said, they have to have the balance though to be able to
mhm,
give some encouragement.
mhm,
Analyticals are not natural encouragers.
mhm,
They have to discipline themselves to actually be encouraging,
mhm.
to be positive. A good example would be, right? You are an analytical and you're also highly versatile, which is really one of the great features about you, but you are an analytical style. I'm an expressive style, which we're going to talk about in a minute. The expressive thrives on recognition and validation, and uh,
Yeah, which the analytical doesn't always offer.
which the analytical doesn't
Doesn't mean
always
they don't
offer.
think it, they just don't always say it.
Yes, it doesn't go from their brain to their
Yes,
mouth.
exactly.
So a good example was in the not too distant past, you ran some errands. You were going to be gone for an hour and a half, and you had been just harping on me that man, we need to really declutter our garage. It's just so full. We can't even get one car in our two-car garage, and I would always say, okay, yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, but that's not fun. And that's what expressives want to do. They want to do fun things.
So you're gonna devote, like, an hour, which is great,
Yeah,
but that's about your time window. Like, I'm gonna do this for an hour
I'm gonna do it for an
because
hour.
it's
That's what
not
I
an
told
enjoyable
myself.
activity.
I'm going to
Yeah,
spend an hour
yeah.
and I'm going to create enough room. I had an objective to get one car in. And so basically, I'm just moving stuff out of the way.
So you just moved everything over to my side.
Right. Yeah, I'm just shoving all this stuff aside. And it took me an hour. And I'm so excited because I knew that when you got home and that garage door opened,
You're gonna
you
see
would
I'm gonna see your
see,
car. Yeah.
no, you would have space for your car.
Oh.
Yeah, because I'm not selfish. I wasn't going to move my car in there. I was going to let you pull your car in, and I couldn't wait. So I'm waiting in the garage. As soon as I heard the garage door open, I run outside to the garage,
With
waiting
your
for you to
big
see it.
grin
My
and
big
so
grin.
happy, yeah.
And what happened? Right? Tell everybody what happened.
I'm pretty sure it said something, along the likes of, "Oh, thanks, sweetie, but what about all that crap right there?"
Right. Quote. What about all that crap over there?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
admit it. That's what I said.
So look, this
And
is
then you felt
styles.
completely deflated.
I did because I just invested an hour of doing
Yeah.
something I really had no
And I
desire
didn't mean
doing.
to deflate you. I appreciated it, but I was focusing on
Yeah.
what didn't get done, which is, again, the analytical
That's right.
tendency.
So look, this is what this is
Yeah,
about. When you're in the workplace, you got to realize analyticals have that eye to want to always see things improve,
yeah,
but they can come across sometimes critical. And if you're that analytical type, you've got to
yeah,
learn to be much more proactive with encouragement, being positive, and you don't always have to balance it out with some level of
yeah.
constructive feedback or criticism.
It needs to be at least, weighted 5 things that are encouraging and maybe 1 thing that is a criticism, but not the opposite,
It's
which
not a bad
yeah.
ratio. Yeah, especially if you're married to an expressive.
Or just leave the criticism out until later. Yeah,
Look, so that's the analytical, right? Great
yeah.
style. Own it if that's who you are. Remember, the goal is not to be a different style, but to be versatile,
Mhm,
to be able to shift the gears from one style to the
mhm.
other as needed.
And
That's,
making decisions can be a real challenge for the analytical. They take so long because they wanna make sure that they don't miss anything and they don't make the wrong decision, and so
yeah,
they don't make a decision, which I'm notorious for just taking days, weeks,
just
months to make a decision
ruminating.
about something that
Right,
you would make a decision and say, "Absolutely, let's get that."
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
yeah.
to me, it doesn't have to be the best decision, the right decision. It just has to be a decision and just to move the ball. A good example would be, I was so excited this past Christmas. I bought you a present and I got you this really nice backpack, and I couldn't wait. And I found this color scheme that I thought was awesome.
It was an awesome
Christmas
backpack.
morning, what's that?
It was an awesome backpack.
Awesome backpack. And you opened the box and you saw it, and you were excited. You're like, "Oh my gosh, this is a great backpack." But upon further inspection, as you look at the color scheme, what did you begin to think, and what did you finally say to me?
I thought the hardware, I'm just not sure about the glossiness of it. I think I need to look at other
A
options.
little too blingy from the expressive.
So for me, it was a little too shiny, so I began looking that afternoon for some alternatives and
Yeah. And you came back to me
yeah.
and said, "Hey, what do you think about maybe us going back and maybe exchanging it for a different?" And what I say, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want you to be happy. So the next day, we went to the store, and the sales associate was there to help you decide which one is the best. And
Mhm.
he tells you about this limited edition one,
Mhm.
and I'm like, oh, baby, that's a great one.
Yeah.
And there I go again, right? Let's do that one because I want to get in.
Just get it and let's
Let's
go so we
go.
can go to
Yeah.
dinner. Yeah.
We were there for
Yeah.
almost an hour, and
No,
finally,
we weren't there for an hour.
okay, I
Exaggeration.
know that's what expressives do. And you ended up
Maybe
picking
30
the one
minutes.
that the sales
Yeah.
associate and that I kind of were pressuring you a little bit to
Yeah.
make.
It was the best option for what they had in the store at that time, the day after Christmas
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
So
Yeah.
you get it. We get in the car, and I mean, literally, we weren't even in the car a minute, and I look at you, and I could just tell, and I said, "Honey, what's wrong? Are you not happy with the backpack?" And what did you say?
I'm not sure if it's the right one.
Exactly.
Oh, we were on our way to the airport to go to South Carolina to
That's
go
right.
to Palmetto Bluff.
That's right. We were
Yeah.
heading. That's right.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Hey, they've got one of those stores in the airport. Let's just go look, and maybe we'll exchange it again." And you're like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." So we get there. They didn't have what you wanted, and so we ended up when we got back from the trip exchanging it.
Went to the store again and had to show my face
Yeah.
embarrassingly. And yeah.
And now you have
But
the
it was
right
perfect.
one.
They had a new model that they hadn't had before, and
Yeah.
it was the perfect one with the right hardware and the right leather. And
That's it. Welcome to the world of the analytical, right there. So that's the analytical.
Yeah.
Then you've got the expressive, which is my style. The expressive is fun, outgoing, big picture, high energy,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't require any sleep.
They do not require much sleep.
Very
You know,
little.
We wake up in the morning with a buzz, and I don't mean from drinking. I mean we just
Walter
wake up
wakes
with
up
some.
every day at 5:30, and I ask him how he's doing. He says, "Great,
Yeah.
amazing." He says that every single morning.
Yeah, I do because
But
I
it's
am.
real. It's the real deal. He's not faking it. He really feels that way. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I'm
Yeah.
excited about the new day. I'm excited about what's ahead. So expressives are great, but obviously, what are some of the downsides that expressives have to
Yeah.
be aware of? Since you live with one,
Yeah.
what are some of the downsides that you would say this is something that they need to really be kind of really fully aware of?
I think expressives can be so optimistic that sometimes they are not quite realistic enough.
Mm.
I think that expressives have difficulty with pain, and just going to the place of talking about painful things is something that is avoided just because it's not fun, it's uncomfortable. And so I think they will do just about anything they can to delay that,
Yeah,
if you will.
yeah,
And so I think vulnerability, because of that, is a challenge for expressives because they want to
right.
just have fun and they want to enjoy life and they want everything to be a positive experience, which is awesome. I really admire the expressive quality, but
Yeah,
at a cost sometimes.
that is some feedback that I've received from people, you and some others, who have said to me, it just seems like you're always doing amazing.
Which is
It's
kind of true.
like if they
But
didn't know better, it's like you're always
they
great.
would
There's
think it's
never a
not
problem.
real.
But it's
Yeah.
not true. You know
Yeah.
my problems. I've
Yeah.
I've talked with you about some of my problems, and you've helped me to
Yeah.
talk more about them. For me to get out of the optimistic, positive mindset has been a real challenge
Mhm.
because that's how I've always survived.
Mhm.
But it's not a healthy way because you got to deal with stuff. I can't always crack a joke and get out of pain. And so, again, remember the goal is not changing your style, it's being more versatile so that you can now shift gears when you need. And there's
Mhm.
times I need to become more self reflective and enter
Mhm.
into under the surface the
Mhm.
meaning behind the meaning of something, right? So, expressives are great because they are high energy, they're going to champion
Mhm.
causes, they're
And people love to
fun.
be around the expressive. I mean,
Yeah,
you guys bring light to every situation and fun,
right.
and everything is about just enjoying life and having fun. I mean, I can think of countless times that you've said to me at like 11 p.m., "Hey, sweetie, do you want to go to Walmart and just
Yeah,
kind of shop around,
right.
or do you want to go to CVS and just shop around?"
Just to get out of the
And
house.
what do I typically say?
Heck no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I don't want to do that. But
right.
you want to do it just because you want to just experience some fun
Experience, right.
and spontaneity.
Yeah, to
And
me,
yeah,
when we go on a trip, to me, the trip begins right when we pull out of the driveway. It's the
yeah.
experience of let's stop at every Starbucks along the way. Let's experience a latte, every 2 hours, because to me the experience
Uh,
starts right away. Not it's
yeah,
not when I get there;
yeah.
it's on the
So if it
road.
takes 20 hours to get to Destin, it's okay because we're gonna stop
That's
at every
right.
Starbucks in every town.
Yeah, boy, our kids are chafing at that. Why we stopped, I think, 7 times between here and Florida. So, the other side that expressives have to be aware of is, they can get distracted quickly. They don't sit still for very long. I've had to really discipline myself to be able to sit still to read for long periods of time.
Yeah.
That took a lot of work and effort, but now I can do it pretty good. But the expressive naturally is restless. and they're not great with details, and things slip by. So they've got to have a good system that holds them,
Mhm.
well, keeps them organized, right?
Mhm.
So that's the analytical, that's the expressive. We got two more. We've got the driver, right?
Mhm.
And I love the word driver. Some programs have changed the word to driving.
Yeah.
And whenever drivers hear that, they go, no, 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 no. I like driver.
Yeah.
They like that word a whole lot better. Talk about the driver style. This is a great style. Talk about the strengths of the driver.
Yeah. Yeah, the driver is kind of that typical my way or the highway kind of person. They love to control, they love results, they love action. They're that person on the team that's going to make sure that everything is gets started and gets finished on time. They're all about making sure that they accomplish the task at hand, and so nothing's going to stand in the way, and that includes people sometimes. So there
Mm,
may be dead bodies along the way, and hurt feelings and so forth, and that's not their priority because they're all about, the mission, which is awesome, right? That's how organizations thrive.
right.
But it comes with its deficits just like any other because, they don't often consider, um, people's emotions or people's
Right.
people's real struggle, so they have a hard time with compassion and humility and vulnerability in those areas.
Right. Yeah. It's so easy for the task to take precedent over the people.
Mhm,
And that's the driver's strength. They are productive. They
mhm,
will get 10 things, 20 things done that day.
mhm,
Nothing
mhm,
will stop them. And it's awesome. I mean, it
mhm,
is a whirlwind. They
mhm,
can accomplish so much.
mhm,
You always want a driver on your team because you know
mhm,
they will get it done no matter
mhm,
what. The downside is the lack of sensitivity,
mhm.
the lack of kind of like the analytical. They don't necessarily go around trying to encourage people and, hey, great job. And that was
Mhm,
awesome. The only time they'll do that is if you do something truly extraordinary.
mhm.
If you go above and beyond, then they'll do it. But if you do just what
Right,
you're supposed to do,
right.
they're like, why would I want to say
They're not gonna give you any kudos.
no kudos for
Yeah,
doing what you're supposed
yeah.
to do? Yeah. So the driver is great, but they've got to really be aware of that people element because when you
Mhm,
and I, we know drivers
mhm, we sure do.
and we love them because we see their
Well,
strengths.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But the hard part about the driver sometimes is drivers don't take a lot of time to kind of get in your world.
Mhm,
They don't really try to ask you how you're doing. If there's something serious going on in your
mhm,
life, they may ask once, but they don't really spend time either getting under the surface because
mhm.
emotion isn't something that they're comfortable with.
Yeah, it can be a little bit harder to connect with the driver. Wouldn't you say that's fair?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah,
Mhm,
it is harder to connect.
mhm,
It's honestly the part, if you look at, for instance, presidents of the United States,
mhm,
drivers that aren't very versatile don't make it to that level of the presidency because you've got to be able to connect with people.
mhm,
A driver that does make it is usually highly versatile,
mhm.
right? Because they have the ability to connect with a lot of people
Or they're highly criticized.
or they're highly criticized. Very true.
Yeah.
You go back to the expressive type for just a minute, right? You think of somebody like, let's lay the controversy aside for just a moment
Mm,
that's going on right now in his world, but you take someone like Joe Biden.
mhm,
Joe Biden gets really close to people. He rubs their shoulders.
mhm.
If he's being introduced before a presentation, he'll put his arm around their neck, right? That was just because expressives love close contact.
Right.
They love to be in people's world and in their space. I know that because that's me. And I would
Yeah,
see that as that's just Joe Biden, the expressive. I
right,
didn't see it as this
right,
creepy thing or this thing of, it's just that Joe has always been this guy that's gotten in people's world.
right,
Now,
right.
can that get you in trouble? Well, it sure
Sure,
can. And
sure.
who knows what the facts are with Joe Biden? It might have gotten him in trouble. But when you look at people like Joe
Mhm,
Biden, like
mhm,
Bill Clinton, like
mhm,
Donald Trump,
mhm.
right? Donald Trump is an expressive,
Yeah,
right? Expressives take criticism very personally.
mhm.
And when they get angry, what do?
They lash out,
They lash
which is what
out.
we see Trump do
That's right.
all the time when
Yeah.
he
They
gets
take things,
criticized. Yeah.
they attack back. So, um,
Well, and back to Joe Biden, he has this kind of tendency to be overly affectionate, maybe too close, and maybe has crossed some true boundaries, but nobody maybe has told him. He lacks
yeah.
self-awareness, so he's never done anything about it,
I
right?
would venture to guess in his career, hardly anybody probably has ever told that to Joe
Mhm.
Biden.
Mhm.
And the reason is because hardly anybody tells anybody that kind of feedback.
Mhm.
People just don't do it. That's why feedback is a gift,
Mhm.
right? So if you're going to run for president, by the way, you better have a lot of versatility to display expressiveness so that you can connect on an emotional level with a lot of people,
Mhm.
right? So if you're a driver, you're going to get it done. You're going to have a plan. You're going to be organized. You're going to be determined to get things done. but you can't do it at the expense of not connecting with human beings.
Right. Right.
Now we got one
Absolutely.
more. And this last one, you and I always joke. It's the style that if somebody's going through a lot in life, this
Mm.
is who you want to go to Starbucks with
Yeah.
for 2
They're
hours.
so sweet and compassionate. They listen. They're right in it with you.
Yeah,
You know,
who
they
is it?
get in the trenches with you. The amiable.
The amiable, yeah.
Yeah.
They are just a gentle soul, right?
Mhm.
When you have sat down with an amiable,
Mhm.
when you've had a lot going on in your life,
Mhm.
what's that like for you when you're sitting and having coffee or lunch with an amiable? What are they doing with you whenever you're talking
Mhm.
about what's going on?
You know, I think amiables have this gift to be able to listen with empathy, true empathy. They're not just listening and waiting for what they're going to say to you next. They're really listening and trying to get into what it is that you're going through, and they know how to express that in a way that's really authentic.
Yeah,
So I think that's the beauty of the amiable is they know how to really be in the moment
yeah,
with a person when they're hurting or they're suffering.
that's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
they just love to take care
Mhm.
of people. They want to make sure that they make people feel good. And so here's the downside of the amiable. The downside is that they're typically okay only when you're okay. And
Mhm.
so they will spend a lot of their time making sure that feelings around them are okay and positive,
Mhm.
and they will do whatever they can to make sure that they're helping
Mhm.
you to
Mhm.
do whatever you want.
Even at the expense of themselves,
That's
and
it.
that's the real tragedy is that their intent is to help and to keep peace, but oftentimes they will self-sacrifice in order to do that, and I think that's the real growth action
That's right.
for the amiable is
Yeah.
to not do that.
Over time, they can really become this martyr, right?
Mhm.
I do so much, and
Mhm.
look what
Mhm.
I've done, and I spend
Mhm.
all my time, and yet who's doing this for me? And they can really
Yeah.
take this almost resentfully because nobody's offering them the same level of
Yeah.
empathy and affirmation. And the
Mhm.
reason is because most people aren't amiables,
Mhm.
and they want others to treat them the way they're treating others,
Right.
and that's a big burden to put on people.
And they can become really resentful. So they may be nice to your face, but inward they hate you, right?
Yeah,
But they lack the courage to be able to say it.
right.
So then it's this destructive pattern of doing things that you don't want to do and this inauthenticity that develops because you're too afraid to say, I really don't like the way you treat me. And
Right.
so you allow it to continue and
Even though they have a responsibility now to give that feedback.
yeah.
Okay? We have friends that are amiables that you just see how sensitive they are,
Mhm.
and that they can call you up on the phone and just begin sharing, their feelings and how they're hurt because of what somebody said or what somebody did
Mhm.
or somebody at work. And you
Mhm.
just want to say, well, have you talked to them about that yet?
Mhm.
Have you gone to them and
Mhm.
shared that with them? And amiables will be like,
It's
heck
really
no.
hard. Yeah, they would do anything to avoid that.
Anything to avoid
Yeah.
it. They will delay and delay. And the
Mhm.
reality is the amiable grows by having the courage to speak
Mhm.
up and to
Mhm.
begin learning to be okay if somebody else isn't okay.
Right.
That's
Or if somebody that disagrees with them, they're still
yeah,
okay with being disagreed with. Even that I think produces the tension for an amiable that they don't want to face.
yeah, no doubt about it. So in
Mhm.
terms of applications of social styles, man, in sales, this is big.
Mhm.
If you're somebody out there who is out there selling, you're trying to connect with your
Mhm.
customers, your clients, prospects, being able to identify
Mhm.
what your prospect or client or customer style is and being able to mirror back to
Mhm.
them what they need, whether that's an email form,
Mhm.
whether that's through text message,
Right.
by
Right.
looking, if you're talking to a driver, don't give them like we say, 3 paragraphs of information.
You know, you need to give them the bare bones because that's what they're wanting from you, and they
Right.
feel offended that you didn't respect their time, and so I think that, we all walk away from exchanges when we're dealing with someone that's different than us, and we feel offended sometimes because maybe I didn't send you the exclamation point or the smiley face
Right.
emoji, when really it's not a personal thing, right?
Right.
Or you're dealing with a driver that wants just the bare bones and you send them 3 paragraphs about your weekend and your dogs. Well, they don't wanna hear about that,
That's
right? And
right.
so trust gets diminished because they don't respect, the way that you're interacting with them. And
Yeah,
so
that's
then they
right.
tend to avoid.
I had a friend of mine,
Mhm.
mutual friend of ours, that I used to send him these long text messages. Hey, bro, how's it going? And I would do these long texts. And at the end of it, I'd say, you want to grab dinner? And he would simply reply, sounds good. And I remember being almost like offended that
Yeah, like,
here I am.
does he not wanna have dinner?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I invested in this text message,
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
let him know that I'm thinking about him and concerned. And
Yeah.
hey, and all he says is sounds good. And to him, the reason he did that is because he's in the middle of something. He's actually working,
Yeah.
right? And so he's trying to multitask by letting me know, yeah, that sounds good. And here I am
Right.
expecting more from him, which isn't really fair. And once
Right.
I began to understand styles, I began to
Yeah.
not be as offended, by
Yeah, and then once you start mirroring that person, like I have a family member that I will send her a long paragraph about all these details, and she will send me back, sure, or okay,
yeah,
or 2 words.
right,
And so I've learned to mirror that back because it just works better. She doesn't
right.
want to read my, 3-paragraph text, which I don't typically send those, but sometimes I will.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
pretty
but
detail oriented. There's
yeah,
times that you go into a
yeah.
lot of detail.
But I think
Yeah,
if you can learn to do that, then it becomes less of a burden even for you because you just realize that's just how you communicate with that particular person,
yeah,
right?
no doubt about it. So those are the 4 styles.
Yeah.
We have spent a lot of time teaching on these and working on them in ourselves. You've got the analytical, you've got the expressive,
Mhm.
you've got the driver, and you got the amiable. And
Mhm.
no model is a perfect model, but this model, it's about identifying yourself and people. And we're all
Mhm.
a blend.
Mhm.
Everybody is a blend of
Mhm.
of a couple of these. But if you can identify your primary style and know thyself,
Mhm.
then you have the ability to control thyself
Mhm.
and ask yourself, how is
Mhm.
my style helping me? And how is
Mhm.
my style potentially getting in my
Hurting
way?
me.
How's it hurting me?
Right.
And if you can take that seriously, we really do. We've watched people improve and get better
Mhm.
as they've gotten into this understanding of styles because now all of a sudden they are becoming more versatile as
Right.
leaders, as husbands, as wives, as
Yeah,
coworkers.
it works. And once you know yourself and then you begin to control yourself, then the next step is to know others.
Yeah,
And you can know others by learning the model, learning how to identify, right,
that's
styles
right.
quickly. It doesn't take long. Wouldn't you agree? It only takes a little bit of time to identify styles.
Yep,
And then once you know what another style is or another person's style is, then it's your responsibility to adapt to the knowledge of that.
that's right.
So my job is to make you more comfortable, right, in your relationship with me,
Particularly during
right?
important times, not all the
Right.
time, because you're gonna be yourself, particularly when it's an important conversation or where you know that it's important in that moment, you're gonna
Mhm.
try to adapt yourself. Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
well, look, if you guys want some more information on this, there's a great book called People Styles at Work by Bolton and Bolton. It's a wonderful book that introduces you to the 4 social styles that are out there. Again, we're going to have a link below in the description that's going to be able to let you download that for free. You can look at the information, even take the self-assessment yourself to see kind of where you fall. And I promise you guys, this is a tool that I think will be really, really helpful for all of you who decide to take it seriously. Knowing thyself. What a great way to live life and seeking out feedback from other people. We'll be with you guys again in a couple of weeks. I hope you've been enjoying this. Like we said before, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us some reviews on iTunes. You can hit us up on Spotify. We're on the Facebook business page, The Arete Way. And we've been enjoying this journey with you guys so far. And we'll see you here in a couple of weeks.